So thanks for all the comments and suggestions, and as Layla mentioned, there was a task for the working group for both research and training and education. And everyone can sort of see that. I think it was page, I'm gonna get it wrong, if somebody can help me out, 30-something in the booklet, where they, each of those particular domains had sort of like, if you had this grant, kind of a focused goal during this breakaway session yesterday, which will be very different with clinical care delivery and advocacy and policy. So appreciate the broader, thoughts and points, and I know we're taking notes throughout our 2 days together, so that we can then refocus on some of these other priorities that people have been mentioning as well. So we're going to move on. So that other breakaway session was for training and education, also had sort of a focus goal, if you will, of looking at a particular grant. And so Siki and Gordon will be presenting.
Thanks, Michelle. Good morning. I am Siki Wanyamtlete, and I'll be presenting on the Training and Education Working Group.
Can you ask Michelle to pronounce your surname?
Michelle, can you pronounce my...
Wow, just on glass. She said I could say Siki.
Siki, yes. These are the participants of the discussion we had yesterday, and I think I probably want to highlight here that there really was quite a wide variety of people that sat around the table discussing our specific discussion topic. So the opinions represent what came out of that discussion. Okay. All right. Dr. Gordon will talk on this slide.
Is tax sharing. I just wanted to set the tone for the working group, and we're looking at training and education. So we recognize that within the continent we are faced with a number of inequities that's been shaped by three main things that we thought is driving that kind of inequity. Resource gap, training, and treatment gap. So, we couldn't get the current data on the resource gap, but then we know that our population in the last 2 decades have increased by nearly 50%, and the disability life years lost has increased by 52%. In 2015 alone, Africa is calculated to have lost 17.9 million years to disability due to mental health. So that's just to give you an understanding of how big the problem is. Okay. And then, as far as training is concerned, churning out mental health professionals of any kind, not just doctors or nurses, we are lacking way behind the global average of 9 per 100,000 population. We are at 1.4 per 100,000. And when it comes to psychiatrists, we're looking at 1 psychiatrist per 2.5 million people across the continent. The variability from place to place in Ghana is about 0.7 psychiatrists per 100,000 population. So that's where we are. For psychologists, we're looking at 1 per 2 million. And nurses, much better than the rest of us, 1 per 500,000. So there is huge. In terms of treatment gap, it varies across the continent from north to south, east to west. In Ghana, Sierra Leone, we have a treatment gap of about 98%. So what that means is that the people with mental disorders, the difference between the number of persons with mental disorders and those who actually need help for it, that difference is a treatment gap. And we are looking at 75% in South Africa, and as you go up north, it increases up until 98 or so %. So we have a huge task ahead of us, and I just wanted to bring this to focus so we know what we are actually looking at. So within the AGM at HI, ACME, so within us, we have silos of expertise. How do we bring that up? Coalesce these expertise into a homogeneous or a kind of an organized heterogeneous group to deliver what we're looking at doing. And there is an opportunity through HMHI to even go wider to the diaspora and bring people. So that's what we're looking at with the education and training. And at the end, we'll look at how that can be, because I just want to point us to a project that's called AFEM, which is, I think those in South Africa might know, which is the Africa Focused Intervention for Mental Health, which is being piloted in South Africa and Ethiopia. Okay, looking at tax sharing or tax shifting in order. I think the AFEM project is looking at bridging the treatment gap, and it's probably one of the things that the working group must look at, their rationale, their goals, and how they're going about it, and be able to adapt and get some kind of ideas from there as well. So I'll hand over to CK at this point.
Great, thanks, Gordon. So that was a brief description of where we are, where we're at, and where do we want to get. So obviously, bridging those gaps that Gordon identified is ultimately where we want to get. But in terms of what we have at our disposal within me and with the expertise we have, I think the first thing really would be, the first obvious place would be to leverage that expertise to bridge the training gap. And we identified curriculum development as being an important niche where that gap could be adequately addressed. We do believe that addressing the training gap could, as a downstream result, address the treatment gap. We acknowledge that, that is not knowledge, and that would need to be established as knowledge. And so we believe that what we'll present as this being a pilot of that could actually generate that knowledge, and we could perhaps in the future say with confidence that addressing the training gap is a feasible way of addressing the treatment gap. We feel that we want to get to where we can use a mode of delivery which is not limited by the resource gap, right? So we felt that hybrid, virtual and face-to-face delivery of those curricula would be a way in which we can get there. And as I said, addressing the training and the skilling needs would then help to address the treatment gap as a result. How? We got to, and I think a bit of what Gordon presented earlier talks to how the working group identified trauma as almost a universal experience across South African countries, right? And so we felt that using a trauma module as a pilot to test the strength of the collaboration, its ability to translate into impact, and also as a template for development of future modules. We felt this is one way in which we could achieve that. Another way we felt would be to identify an African region and or registrar audience, right? With which the module would be implemented and adapted to address that particular context. So I've just put there in brackets that we'd refer to the progress that Dr. Gordon presented yesterday about what the working group has already come up with in terms of the trauma module. So if you just have that in mind. So we know where we are, we know we want to get, and we've identified a potential vehicle to get there. And this brings us to page 33 of our programs, where the Global Innovation Fund grant has been identified as a potential vehicle to get there. You can see page 33 for more detail about the grant itself. But in terms of what we felt the working group can feasibly achieve, we felt that it's, the funding application can actually be for the pilot. If you look at page 33, you'll notice that there's different levels of funding at which one can apply. We felt that, or we determined that funding could be applied for specifically for piloting the trauma module, and according to the grant information, you'll notice that the pilot is to the tune of about $230,000 US. And we felt that we do have actually a credible plan for an early stage pilot, which does have the potential to scale up. We felt that the innovation can realistically be ready for real-world application and tested for scaling up. So the pilot could actually help to determine how this innovation can then be scaled up. Scaling up would actually also have multiple layers. So it would include diversifying, identifying other areas of needs where module and curricula do need to be developed. How then do we apply that in different contexts from that which it's been applied in the pilot? So, those would be different ways in which scaling up could feasibly be seen as what can be done going forward. And we also felt that the innovation does improve on existing approaches, and it does have the potential to reach millions if it is successful. And these are some of the requirements of the grant, as you'll see on page 33. So we agreed that this is actually an appropriate fund that we can apply. We did not get to actually putting together a grant application because that was just not feasible at the time we had and the people we had around the table. But this was sort of agreed upon that this is actually something feasible that we absolutely can go for. Challenges. So you'll notice we've been collaborating, right? And we felt that collaboration is one of the sort of, you can say challenge, but definitely opportunity, isn't it? That the opportunity to collaborate with other working groups within AHMI, especially, the research working group, the advocacy and policy working group, and clinical and care delivery working groups. Designing a curriculum that both delivers evidence-based, cost-effective interventions and also meets best practice. And then also a multidisciplinary approach to delivering the content and context.
So just a little addition to the GIF, which is the Global Innovative Fund, which our co-chair actually gifted us with, Michaela, so credit to Michaela for that, is that it is specific for poor resource or poorly resource settings. So we thought that was ideal for us, and it is scalable. I mean, the initial amount for piloting the project is $230,000, and it goes up to a few millions, and then the big project can be funded up to 15 million. So we can go stepwisely until we get to the top. The scalability can be multi-directional. It can be discipline specific or geographical location. So we can start with a particular place, with a particular group of people like registrars or nurses or psychologists or social workers. There is also the opportunity for tax sharing with people who are not in the mental health fraternity, like GPs and so on, who will be interested in getting in. So we can look at, so it could be multi-directional, multi-locational, and blown up later on if we get to the 15 mil level across the African continent. Thank you very much.
So I'm just going to open it up for any thoughts, questions, comments.
Me again.
Yes?
I was going to go, there she is again, the sleep person. People call me the sleep therapist, and it freaks me out as much as the baby whisperer does. Please can you include sleep and sleep training in the curriculum, because that basic knowledge of physiology and neuroanatomy and neuroscience around sleep is where it all begins. And also at grassroots level, just being able to understand what you're treating. It's not simply just, oh, the person has insomnia. It's a big picture. So if you can slip that into your curriculum, that's what I wanted to ask.
Thank you for that. The thing is, the trauma module is just a framework where we can just add other things on, like we can look at first episode psychosis or mood disorders, whatever. We just use that as the framework, to just fit in and adapt. So yes, sleep is. I think that sleep disorders are really underdiagnosed in the African region. This one senior colleague of mine who trained in South Africa is back in Ghana, is actually running the sleep disorders campaign across the country. So yes.
I can touch on this more in the policy and advocacy presentation, but I think the significant overlap between our work group's approach and what you guys plan to do, particularly with the social innovation aspect, which we designed, right? And so basically, I was just reading through the grant. There's a lot of what the toolkit we are proposing can basically be a blueprint for the grant eventually, right? Like it's a case study. And so I do want to, of course, I need to report back to Dr. Frigione, Dr. Tedler, but I'm sure there's, a lot of potential to work together on this particular ground, especially, how we use social innovation, design thinking with centered approaches across the continent, and potentially even collaborate with D-labs, like design labs on the continent to advance the grant.
Yeah, I think we can co-write.
And I'll leave this up to my co-chairs to decide.
Yeah. So we can collaborate. We are looking for that across the working groups, because I think this touches on more than just the education and training. I think it also goes into research, because if we are piloting, that could be a research project, and then advocacy for funding and for other things through tax sharing. Thank you very much.